So, how is everyone this evening? I have searched high and low for amazing talent, and I have found it. You all have been chosen to join my group, the Horror Nation.
The Horror Nation? Honestly, that sounds kinda cheesy. How about the Midnight Society?
I like it, but I feel like it's been used before. What about the Stay Awake Society?
So let me get this straight. You're the Sandman, and you're a member of the Stay Awake Society. That's like if I joined the Grand Order of people that don't slaughter peasants.
Yeah. Give me a minute to think of something.
Well, you're the Sandman, aren't you? How about the Deep Sleep Society?
I love it. That is, if it pleases the Baron.
Really? We're just gonna go with that? We're not gonna talk about it? Okay.
Now, time for me to explain myself. As we sit in front of this blazing fire, each one of you will bless this group with a story. Bring your best. Everyone wants to hear a good story. Now, who will do the honor in giving us our first story?
I think Lunar should go first. Ladies first.
I'm sure we can all remember the fun we had as kids. Riding bikes, going to the park, to the movies, and even to the local carnival when it was in town. Most of you can probably remember that awkward time growing up and trying your best to fit in. We all wanted to belong somewhere. Tonight, I will share with you a story about that same childhood innocence. What would you have done to fit in? As part of the Deep Sleep Society, I bless this group with the story of the Bunnyman, written by me. Rick and Trevor had always enjoyed going to the carnival. However, now that Trevor was older, he wasn't too keen on his little brother tagging along. He wanted to go meet up with his friends and do older kid stuff, but he was plagued with the task of keeping an eye on his younger sibling. The two entered the carnival and Trevor quickly scanned the crowd for his friends. It wasn't long before Trevor spotted Simon and the rest of the group, and he quickly hurried Rick along to meet up with them. Rick stopped in the middle of the crowd and pulled at Trevor's arm. "I don't want to hang out with them. They're mean," Rick protested. "Listen up. These are my friends. It's bad enough I have to have you tagging along. Let's just meet up and try to make the best of it." They eventually made their way to Simon's group, and Trevor was eager to meet up with them. "Hey guys, what's up?" Trevor greeted them. "What's with the snot-nosed brat?" Simon questioned, looking at Rick. "I'm not a brat," Rick snapped back at them, and Trevor grabbed his arm. "These are my friends, and these are the cool guys at school," Trevor said quietly, bending down to scold Rick. "Don't mess this up for me." Rick jerked his arm away and stood there sniffling. "Oh geez, is he gonna cry?" Simon scoffed. "Maybe we could meet up another time." "No, he's fine," Trevor said, glaring at Rick. "What did you guys want to do?" "Well, we were going to try to find the Bunnyman, but if your little bro is too scared..." "I'm not scared," Rick said. "Especially of some dumb Bunnyman." "Is that so?" Simon questioned. "The Bunnyman hunts and eats little kids like you. I'd be glad to offer you for a sacrifice." "You're just trying to scare me, and it's not gonna work," Rick yelled back. "Well, okay then," Simon laughed. "Let's go then." Simon turned to move through the crowd, and Trevor began to follow. Rick tugged at his arm once again and stood in place. "I don't want to hang out with them. They're always being mean to me and..." "Look, Rick, these are my friends, and I don't need you screwing things up for me," Trevor shot back. "Mom said you have to take me to the carnival to have a good time, and I don't want to hang out with them. She said she would ground you if you didn't listen, and if we have to go with them, I'm telling." Rick stood there not moving and glared at Trevor. "What's the holdup?" Simon yelled back at them. "One sec," Trevor replied, turning back to Rick. Okay, fine, but if that's how you want to do this, then I'm not playing any more video games with you. No more sleepovers in my room, and no more access to my action figures or anything else in my room. Rick stood there thinking for a moment. Fine, he reluctantly answered. But if anything happens to me, it's on you. Nothing's going to happen, Trevor replied. Now come on before we get left behind. Trevor hurried Rick through the crowd and eventually caught back up with Simon and his crew. Oh, finally ready to face the Bunnyman, are we? Simon remarked. I'm not afraid of you or the dumb Bunnyman, Rick quipped back. Okay, lighten up, little man, Simon laughed as he turned to push through the crowd. Eventually, they made their way through the crowd of people and found a clearing at the back of the carnival. It was then that Trevor had an opening to question Simon about the mysterious Bunnyman he had been talking about. So what's the deal with this bunny guy you were talking about? Trevor asked. It's the Bunnyman, and rumor has it he's a deranged psychopath that walks the back of the carnival at night waiting for a child to snatch. Come on, that's just silly, Trevor laughed. I'm scared, Trevor. I don't want to go, Rick whimpered, looking at Trevor. Well, if your little baby brother doesn't want to come, we can always go without you, Simon answered with a smirk. Trevor turned and bent down beside of him. Look, Rick, this is my one shot at getting in with the cool guys at school. I know I've been hard on you, but can't you just do this for me? Rick thought for a moment and eventually answered. Okay, fine, but I get to play your Xbox for a week for however long I want and you can't kick me out. Okay, deal, Trevor said, looking at Rick. Can we just go along then? Nothing is gonna happen. All right, Rick finally agreed, and the pair followed Simon to the back of the carnival. The group lingered at the back of the carnival for what seemed like forever, and the Bunnyman was nowhere in sight. This is stupid, Rick said, crossing his arms. I'd have to agree with the kid. There's no Bunnyman here, Simon. Can we just go? Tyler said from the back of the group. Oh, so you're all a bunch of wusses, Simon snapped. The Bunnyman is here somewhere. We just have to wait for him. We aren't wusses, Tyler protested. This is just lame. Tyler just barely finished his sentence when the shadow of bunny ears began to creep out from behind the back tent of the carnival. See, I told you he'd be here, Simon replied as the rest of the group focused on the shadow. After a moment, a man wearing a bunny suit made his way out from behind the tent. He moved slowly into the light and turned towards the group. He was wearing an average run-of-the-mill bunny suit, but the eyes of the suit were black, almost dead-like. Well, that's creepy, Tyler said, breaking the silence. Sorry, dude, but I don't want any part of this. Oh, so you're scared now too? Simon replied. I'm not scared, but this is weird, Tyler responded. I'm sorry, dude, but we're out. You're all a bunch of wusses, Simon yelled after them. Weak, he muttered under his breath. No matter, you're still with me, aren't you? He continued, looking at Trevor. Trevor didn't want to be seen as weak. He had enough problems trying to fit in at school, and he didn't need something like this going around as well. Yeah, we're still in, he reluctantly replied. Trevor, Rick pleaded, but Trevor shot him a glance that read, We have a deal. Rick backed off and the three made their way closer to the mysterious Bunnyman. I'm going to take off his head, Simon said with a devious smile. I'm not sure that's a good idea, Trevor responded quietly. Are you scared now too? Simon shot back, becoming increasingly annoyed. The Bunnyman has been talked about for years and I'm going to expose him. Expose that he's just some creepy guy hiding behind a mask. If you're too scared, then maybe you should just get the hell out of here too, Simon yelled in frustration. We aren't scared, Trevor announced, holding his ground. I'm scared, Rick said, once again pulling at Trevor's arm. We had a deal, Trevor said, glaring back at Rick. Okay, fine, Rick relented, but I'm staying back here. No one needs your help anyway, you sniveling little bitch, Simon sneered. Come on, Trevor, let's see what's underneath that bunny head. As the two inched closer, the Bunnyman turned towards them. He had appeared to be a man in a bunny suit, but as the two met his gaze, it was almost as if his eyes were dead. There was nothing where the eyes should be except for darkness. "Are you sure about this?" Trevor asked. "He's just some guy," Simon replied. "And when I remove that mask, everyone will see that. I'll be the guy that defeated the big, scary Bunnyman." Simon and Trevor inched closer, and when they reached the Bunnyman, Simon lunged at him, pulling off his mask. "What the hell?" Simon yelled as the Bunnyman's arms gripped him tightly. He was horrified to find that there was no man underneath, but a dark black nothingness where a man's head should be. As Simon looked into the dark black nothingness, a bright light shot out from the Bunnyman's neck and began to sear all of his skin away. Simon tried to scream out in agony, but it took mere seconds to turn poor Simon into a liquefied pile of goo that oozed onto the ground below. Horrified, Trevor turned back to Rick. "Run!" he shouted. "No, I don't want to leave you," Rick yelled back, but it was too late. The Bunnyman darted to Trevor's location and latched onto the young man. "Get out of here, Rick!" Trevor yelled as the deadlights began to consume him, and Rick screamed in horror. With tears pouring from his face, Rick turned and ran out of the carnival all the way home. Through panic breaths, he tried to explain to his mother what had happened, but no one believed him. How could they? Trevor and Simon were listed as missing persons, but with no new information, the case eventually went cold. Simon and Trevor were never found, and no one at the carnival recalled seeing the mysterious Bunnyman. Rick's parents gave him Trevor's old Xbox, and he was told he was allowed to play as much as he wanted, though he doesn't play much. He is haunted at night by the visions of the Bunnyman and mostly sits quietly in his bedroom. The only thing on his mind is vengeance for his brother, and he waits for the day that the carnival returns again.
Ooh. Nah, that's what I call a story. Okay, so who's next?
I got next. This story is about a video game that was to die for. As part of this group, I bless you all with the story, Pale Luna. Written by Mikhail Honoridez. In the last decade and a half, it's become infinitely easier to obtain exactly what you're looking for. By way of a couple of keystrokes, the internet has made it all too simple to use a computer to change reality. An abundance of information is merely a search engine away, to the point where it's hard to imagine life as any different. Yet, a generation ago, when the words streaming and torrent were meaningless save for conversations about water, people met face to face to conduct software swap parties, trading games and applications on Sharpie labeled 5 1/4-inch floppies. Of course, most of the time the meets were a way for frugal, community-minded individuals to trade popular games like King's Quest and Maniac Mansion amongst themselves. However, a few early programming talents designed their own computer games to share amongst their circle of acquaintances, who in turn would pass it on until, if fun and well-designed enough, an independently developed game had its place in the collection of aficionados across the country. Think of it as the 80s equivalent of a viral video. Pale Luna, on the other hand, was never circulated outside of the San Francisco Bay Area. All known copies have been long disposed of. All computers that have ever run the game, now detritus, buried under layers of filth and polystyrene. The fact is attributed to a number of rather abstruse design choices made by its programmer. Pale Luna was a text adventure in the vein of Zork and The Lurking Horror, at a time when said genre was swiftly going out of fashion. Upon booting the program, the player was presented with a screen almost completely blank, except for the text. You are in a dark room. Moonlight shines through the window. There is gold in the corner, along with a shovel and a rope. There is a door to the east. Command? So began the game that one writer for a long out-of-print fanzine decried as enigmatic, nonsensical, and completely unplayable, as the only commands that the game would accept were pick up gold, pick up shovel, pick up rope, open door, and go east. The player was soon presented with the following: reap your reward. Pale Luna smiles at you. You are in a forest. There are paths to the north, west, and east. Command? What quickly infuriated the few who've played the game was the confusing and buggy nature of the second screen onward. Only one of the directional decisions would be the correct one. For example, on this occasion, a command to go in a direction other than north would lead to the system freezing, requiring the operator to hard reboot the entire computer. Further, any subsequent screens seem to merely repeat the above text, with the difference being only the directions available. Worse still, the standard text adventure commands appeared to be useless. The only accepted non-movement related prompts were use gold, which caused the game to display the message, not here. Use shovel, which brought up not now, and use rope, which prompted the text, you've already used this. Most who played the game progressed a couple of screens into it before becoming fed up by having to constantly reboot and tossing the disc in disgust, writing off the experience as a shoddily programmed farce. However, there is one thing about the world of computers that remains true. No matter the era, some people who use them have way too much time on their hands. A young man by the name of Michael Nevins decided to see if there was more to Pale Luna than met the eye. 5 hours and 33 screens worth of trial and error and unplugged computer cords later, he finally managed to make the game display different text. The text in this new area read, Pale Luna smiles wide. There are no paths. Pale Luna smiles wide. The ground is soft. Pale Luna smiles wide. Here. Command. It was another hour before Nevin stumbled upon the proper combinations of phrases to make the game progress any further. Dig hole, drop gold, then fill hole. This caused the screen to display, congratulations, 40.24248, minus 121.4434. Upon which the game ceased to accept commands, requiring the user to reboot one last time. After some deliberation, Nevins came to the conclusion that the numbers referred to lines of latitude and longitude. The coordinates led to a point in the sprawling forest that dominated the nearby Lassen's volcanic park. As he possessed much more free time than sense, Nevins vowed to see Pale Luna through to its ending. The next day, armed with a map, a compass, and a shovel, he navigated the park's trails, noting with amusement how each turn he made corresponded roughly to those that he took in-game. Though he initially regretted bringing the cumbersome digging tool on a mere hunch, the path similarity all but confirmed his suspicions that the journey would end with him face to face with an eccentric's buried treasure. Out of breath, after a tricky struggle to the coordinates, he was pleasantly surprised by a literal stumble upon a patch of uneven dirt. Shoveling as excitedly as he was, it would be an understatement to say that he was taken aback when his heavy strokes unearthed the badly decomposing head of a blonde-haired little girl. Nevins promptly reported the situation to the authorities. The girl was identified as Karen Paulson, 11, reported as missing to the San Diego Police Department a year and a half prior. Efforts were made to track down the programmer of Pale Luna, but the nearly anonymous legal gray area in which the software swapping community operated inescapably led to many dead ends. Collectors have been known to offer upwards of 6 figures for an authentic copy of the game. The rest of Karen's body was never found.
Now that was a really good story. And it's not a competition or anything, but I think I can top it. If it please the Sandman, I'm next.
Are you ready?
I'm always ready. Maintaining friendships after some time away can be difficult, but sometimes your friends are better left behind. I, Baron von Pasta, bless this group with the story The Raggedy Man, written by Max Kennedy 02. The sound of crunching gravel quieted as the small bus slowed to a crawl at the foot of the campsite. The old metal doors opened with a wheeze, and the reluctant campers exited into the ancient wood. The last to exit the bus, Elliot stepped onto the stone and dirt. Shortly after he did so, the bus rolled back down the woodland trail and out of sight. "Howdy, campers," announced an all too enthusiastic man as he jogged towards the group. Elliot rolled his eyes. The man was wearing brown, baggy shorts and a bright blue t-shirt, a red whistle hanging from his neck. He also donned a gray baseball cap, the words Camp Counselor sewn into the front. Similarly dressed adults wandered through the campsite in the background, carrying mattresses to and from the 2 low cabins on either side of a small fire pit. "I'm Matt, your camp counselor, and this is Camp Disconnect," the man shouted to the crowd of unimpressed teens. Elliot scoffed at the ridiculousness of his tone. After an uncomfortable silence, the man continued. "Now, the first rule of Camp Disconnect is that you gotta disconnect," he said with a grin, holding out a plastic tray. "Come on, kids, phones in the tray." The group moaned before complying. After everyone, including Elliot, threw their phones into the tray, Matt handed it off to another counselor. "Now, before you're shown to your beds, let me go over the rules. Rule number 1, bedtime is 10. Gotta be in bed by then, okay? Number 2, no wandering off into the wood. We wouldn't want you to get lost, would we? And number 3, no communication with the outside world, hence the phone tray. Now, luckily for you guys, however, we will allow relatives and friends to send you letters, which we will give you as soon as they get to us. You will not be able to respond, though. This is Camp Disconnect, remember? Now, let's get you folks settled in." After a brief but unmemorable tour, Elliot and the rest of the campers were shown to their respective beds. It was clear, just from this short introduction, that Elliot was not going to have an enjoyable 4 weeks. Elliot woke up on the morning of his 5th day at Camp Disconnect. He sat up with a groan. The stiff springs of the mattress had been digging into his back all night. The past 4 days had been tough for him, and not just because he had no phone. The place stunk of rotted wood and excrement. It was infested with flies and other swarms of bugs. And the food. Oh God, the food. Gruel is what it was. Elliot had no clue what was in it. Aside from the occasional hair, the ingredients were a mystery. He rubbed his eyes as flakes of dead skin fell from his face. "Elliot Peters," called a man in the center of the row of beds. Elliot looked up and squinted. He hadn't noticed him before. He was large, donning a familiar blue attire. However, he appeared to be a good deal older than the rest of the staff. "Elliot Peters!" he repeated, but louder this time. "Yeah, over here." Elliot stuck his hand up. The large man marched over to him. "Letter for you," he growled, handing Elliot a sealed white envelope. "Thanks," Elliot murmured as the man wandered back outside. He opened the envelope to find a single piece of paper, writing scrawled on either side. Elliot smirked. He already knew who it was. It read as such. "Yo, Elliot, it's Ollie. Sucks that you have to stay away from camp for the summer. It's been pretty sucky back here since you've been gone. But I gotta tell you something. It might just be nothing, or it could turn out to be a big fucking deal. So last night I got really bored and couldn't sleep, so you remember when we used to search the deep web on your dad's old computer? Yeah, I did that. But on my computer. I couldn't quite remember how to get on it at first, but eventually it came back to me. After a bit of searching, once I was on the hidden website, I found this creepy-ass website, www.occultplayground.org. Soon after, I learned it was full of tutorials on how to summon demons and monsters and all types of creepy shit like that. It was kind of getting too cliche for me though, so I was about to click off, until I saw one which sounded interesting. The Raggedy Man ritual. I clicked on it and read the description. It said something about a game for depraved souls and some other weird shit I can't remember. It was creepy though. At the bottom of the page it gave me a list. 2 mirrors, salt, darkness, and something to prop the mirrors up. It then went on to explain how to summon the Raggedy Man to begin the game. I followed what it said, propping up 2 mirrors I found facing each other and sprinkling salt in a circle around them. After it was done, I turned off the lights and sat in between the mirrors and read the poem from the website. I had to memorize it because I couldn't leave the computer on. It said I needed pitch darkness. As I'm writing this, I realize I'm sounding pretty crazy, but you get it. Anyway, I closed my eyes and recited the poem. Raggedy Man, won't you come out and play? Raggedy Man, or else you cannot stay. Raggedy Man, as quiet as a mouse. Raggedy Man, awaken from your dark house. After saying it, I just sat there for a moment. Nothing really happened, so I checked the website again. I probably should have read the whole thing before I did the ritual. It said that once completed, you are trapped in a game with the Raggedy Man. He will appear in anywhere and in any form to stalk you. He can take the shape of someone you know or a complete stranger. For whoever performs the ritual, the objective is to not let the Raggedy Man touch you. But he cannot use force to do so. The website says this is because the Raggedy Man prefers to work more discreetly, whatever the hell that means. It didn't go into much detail about what happens if you lose the game. But I assume you just die or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, I'll keep you posted if anything creepy happens. Thought you might be interested. From Ollie. Elliot had been friends with Ollie since their first year of school. This certainly wasn't the strangest thing he'd done. Elliot chuckled as he finished the letter. This kid, he giggled under his breath as he placed it down beside him. The next few days were just as agonizing as the first 4, if not more so. Elliot was usually fond of the outdoors, but something in that hollow wood unsettled him. He woke up once more on the 9th day of his summer camp extravaganza to the sound of a familiar voice. Elliot Peters? The same large camp counselor said. Elliot rubbed his crusty eyes. Yeah, he called out. The man stomped over and dropped the letter on his lap. Thanks. Elliot sighed as the man wandered out the cabin door. Assuming the letter was an update from Ollie, Elliot ripped open the envelope and began to read. Yo, Elliot, it's me again. Something's not right, man. Some real scary stuff has been happening. The ritual, it worked. No joke, I'm freaking out right now. Let me explain. I woke up the day after I sent you that letter and heard my mom calling me from downstairs. So I get halfway down the stairs to see what she wants. Then I remembered. She's been on a business trip to Budapest for the last 5 days. She told me she wouldn't be back for a week. I ran back upstairs, obviously scared out of my mind, and pushed my back against my bedroom door so whatever was in my house couldn't get to me. I thought of what it said on the website. The Raggedy Man can take any form. So I just stand there for like half an hour trying to figure out if I was dreaming or not. I tell you, man, the longest 30 minutes of my life. Anyway, after a while, I finally managed to calm myself down, just figuring I must have imagined it. So I opened the door and crept downstairs to make sure that there was no one there. There wasn't. I called my dad to tell him to come home straight away. I think he could tell I was shaken by my voice, because he was at the house not 10 minutes later. That helped a lot. The rest of the day went without incident, but that unsettled me even more in a way. I told my dad what happened, but he agreed that I must have imagined it. I didn't tell him about the ritual, though. If he'd found out I'd been on the deep web again, he would have kicked my ass. The day passed and I got into bed, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fall asleep. It must have been 3 a.m. when, as soon I was about to finally drift off, I heard a knock at my door. I lay there for a few moments, not saying a word. Then I heard a second set of knocks, but much louder that time. Finally, I managed to squeeze out a weak, "Who's there?" There was a pause before I heard my dad's voice on the other side. "I want to talk about what happened earlier. Can you open the door, please?" Something about his tone was just, I don't know the word, uncanny. I knew that something was wrong. "No, Dad, I'm trying to get to sleep." After I said that, there was just silence. It felt like ages before I heard the sound of footsteps slowly walking back down the hallway. I was shaken to my core. That night I stayed up until my eyelids just fell. I must have passed out because the next morning I woke up aching on my bedroom floor. But what I dreamt of, I shudder to remember. All I can recall was that I found myself in a dirty, decrepit hallway with no end in sight. The walls were a disgusting, creamy shade of yellow with moss crawling up them. The hallway was dimly lit by a row of rusted chandeliers, the wax of their candles dripping onto the metal. I walked for what felt like miles. I just kept going. Then I heard it. The sound of heavy boots slamming on the door echoed from behind me. I turned to see a tall figure standing motionless in the hallway, no more than 10 feet from me. The Raggedy Man. He was large, with brown, saggy trousers and similarly colored jacket, covered in filth. His face was unkempt and, just like the rest of him, covered in brown and black dirt. Thick dreadlocks draped over his shoulders, crawling with lice and other insects. His piercing eyes, a similar sickening yellow to the walls. His mouth unmoving, he spoke to me, as if he were in my head. He growled a phrase which has haunted me since. "You're going to have to try harder than that." With that, I woke up, just as I said, on the floor and dripping with sweat. "Elliot, I'm not okay." I asked my dad and he said he never came to my door. But don't worry. I'm working on a way to end the game. I'll keep you posted. Ollie. Elliot put the letter down. He shook his head in confusion. "He must be fucking with me," he muttered, slightly disgruntled at his friend's tasteless joke. Elliot crawled out of his stiff bed with a groan. That place made him feel 30 years older. Noticing the rest of the kids in the cabin getting ready, he threw on his outdoor clothes and trudged outside behind the rest of the troop. The subsequent day passed slowly. First day hiking trip, then a series of monotonous activities in the woods, and finally an excruciating song time around the campfire. until the sky was black and blue and filled with stars. Elliot got to sleep very quickly that night. He woke up the next morning to the sound of his name being called once again. "Elliot Peters?" The same man called. Again stood centered between the rows of beds. Elliot sat up, somewhat surprised. He wasn't expecting an update this soon. How had the letter even gotten here so soon, he thought. Before the man could call again, Elliot waved his hand in the air. "Over here." The man walked over to him, handing him the third letter. Elliot thanked him once more as he left. For a moment, he contemplated not reading it, not willing to entertain it. But he caved in. Too curious to ignore it, he tore off the envelope and read. "Elliot, I have some good news. This will be the last letter I will send you regarding this whole Raggedy Man situation. I ended the game. However, I may not have been completely truthful with you in the past 2 letters. Let me explain. The night of the ritual, when I told you I couldn't quite remember what the article said, well, I did remember. In fact, I've read it many times now. I just wasn't sure if you were ready to hear it. To be as brief as possible, it said that the game cannot be ended, only passed on to new players. Through the use of a separate ritual, the details of which I'll spare you, you can transfer the curse of the Raggedy Man to someone else. According to the site, there are many ways of passing on the game, but the least complicated one, and the one I've used, involves tricking someone else into talking to the Raggedy Man 3 times. I'm sure if you're reading this letter, then you probably have. I know how you are, always thanking people, always so polite. Depending on the form he's taken, he may have just left. But he'll be back. I'm sorry, Elliot. Your friend, Ollie.
Now it's my turn. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight. You are all amazing at what you do, and that's scaring the crap out of people. But let me ask you guys something. What would you do if the person you were taking care of had an evil curse? A curse that happened well before you were even born. It's surprising what can bring 2 people together, but amazing what can push them apart. They say time heals everything, but how much time is needed? As a part of this group tonight, I bless you all with the story, Close Your Eyes. Written by NerdxCorexCreep. Agatha sits in her rocking chair as she listens. It's all she's done for the last 60 years. She listens. She lost her vision as a young girl, same age as Sam, her caretaker. Sam had been with Agatha for only a week, but had truly grown to love the old woman. Even though Agatha never spoke to her, she felt a connection that even she had never known before. No one knew why Agatha never spoke. Far as the doctors could tell, she had fully functioning tongue and vocal cords. She simply never chose to speak. What seemed clear was that something had traumatized Agatha as a young woman. Something traumatized her so bad that she blinded herself with chemicals and refused to ever speak again. Despite the lack of an ability to see, as well as the unwillingness to speak, Agatha too felt close to Sam. Subtle body language and slight holding of hands were all Agatha needed to communicate to Sam how she felt. Agatha felt safe with Sam, and Sam felt love for Agatha. On this night, however, a look of confusion has come over Agatha's face. She turns her head to the left, and then to the right. She can't understand what is happening right now, and her feelings are mixed. Sam, she whispers for the first time in 60 years. At that moment, Sam is admiring herself in a mirror. She is wearing an old pair of glasses that were kept in an old box in the attic. Curious, she brought the box downstairs and asked Agatha if she could see what was inside. Seeing no problem with this, Agatha had waved her hand in a go-for-it motion. After removing the lid, Sam picked up the old bifocals and placed them on her face. At that exact moment, she saw the look of shock on Agatha's face, and as her name left the old woman's lips as she looked up and saw something behind her. Outside the living room window was a black humanoid figure. It was tall and skinny with a pale white dagger-toothed smile that curled the edges above its bright red eyes. "What the fuck?" said Sam in a tone that didn't know whether to be scared, confused, or some combination of the two. "Sam?" Agatha said again, this time changing her whisper to a squeaky croak. "Agatha?" answered Sam, completely shocked at the fact that this old woman was speaking for the first time in 60 years. She walked over and held her small, frail hands. "There's something outside." "I'm sorry," Agatha croaked, the sound of anguish in her voice. "I'll be right back," Sam responded, not sure what to say or even what Agatha had to be sorry about. "I have to make sure the doors and windows are locked." She pulls away. "I'm sorry," cried Agatha again. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know." Sam ignores Agatha again, making sure to focus on the emergency situation at hand. She looks at the window again and notices that the figure is still outside, but is slightly closer now. Sam goes around the house, fully securing all doors and windows, but as she looks out the kitchen door leading to the backyard, she notices another one. Or is it the same one? Sam isn't sure, but it looks exactly the same. Tall and dark, with a terrifying smile and eyes like a demon. It's even closer to the house than the other one from the living room window was. She lets out a shriek when she sees it, and rushes back to the living room after she is sure the kitchen is secured. She looks out the living room window again, and screams once more when she sees the figure yet again, even closer. Agatha is crying, but then she seems to calm herself down. "Sam," she says again, "you have to close your eyes." "What?" Sam replies. "No, I have to call the police." Sam pulls out her phone and shouts in anger when she realizes the battery is completely dead. "What?" she screams. "No, I just charged this stupid thing." Having no need for a phone, as Agatha hadn't spoken in 60 years, Sam had no means of calling for help. "Sam," Agatha screams weakly. Sam stops and looks at the old woman. "You have to close your eyes." "Why?" Sam asks, so frustrated. "Because he will keep getting closer the longer you keep them open," Agatha says as she places her face in her hands. Trying to wrap her head around what Agatha just said, she walks over to the old woman and kneels before her. "Agatha, what is going on?" "I will tell you, but you have to close your eyes, please." Okay, says Sam, and she does so. 60 years, Agatha began. 60 years ago, I first saw that thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it's here. But I do know that if it gets to you, it will kill you. Just like it killed my brothers all those years ago. Sam didn't know what to say. She didn't even know that Agatha had brothers, let alone that they had died 60 years ago. Agatha continues. We had this friend, Christina, who at the time we just thought was, I don't know, strange. People around town said she was a witch, but we didn't ever believe that. We just thought she was weird. And so one day we felt bad and invited her over. At first, things were great. We got along fine, and my oldest brother Tommy even developed a crush on her. Christina liked him too, so they started to date, and eventually, Tommy proposed to her. Then, one day he comes over in a panic, saying it's true, it was all true. Apparently, Tommy had walked in on her performing some kind of ritual, and he panicked. He ran over here and said she was a witch, and that we all had to stay away from her. Soon, there was a loud knocking on the door, and I could hear Christina pleading for Tommy to open the door and talk to him. Tommy refused for the longest time until we heard John, our youngest brother, at the door too. We could hear him asking Christina what was wrong, but before she could answer, Tommy swung the door open and pulled John inside, but before he could shut the door, Christina shoved her away inside already. I had never seen such hatred in someone's eyes before. Her eyes turned red and her skin became black like charcoal. She waved her hands and some kind of force pulled all three of us towards her. In the vilest voice I'd ever heard, "You're no better than the rest of them." Then she spits in our faces. We all wore glasses, or else she would have gotten our eyes. But now that makes so much more sense. Sam has started to piece it all together as Agatha continues. Christina then just leaves, and we're all standing there in shock. Suddenly, we all begin to see them. Each of us only saw one specifically for us, but it was the black figure you just saw. They start out at a good distance, but as long as your eyes are open, they get closer and closer. We thought there was more than one, because we could see them out the front window and make our way out to the back, and it'd be there too. But there is absolutely only one. One for each of us. I know this because as they got closer, they got inside. Past all the doors and locks, they just kept getting closer. When they were in the same room as us, no matter which direction we turn our head, it would be in our direct line of sight as long as it was somewhere we could see it. It could phase through walls or any object that was in its path, so locking ourselves in a closet or anything was just pointless. Before too long, the closer they got, the faster they were. So we all just sat there with our eyes completely shut. We knew that the second we opened our eyes, we were dead. Tommy was the first to experience the consequences. He said, "Oh, thank God." And the next thing we hear is him screaming and crying. We sat there for, I don't know how long it was when I heard John say, "Mom, is that you?" Before I could tell him to keep his eyes closed, he started screaming and crying just like Tommy did. I sat there alone, not trusting any of the voices that thing pretended to be. It knew of every person I'd ever known and used every one of them. It even touched me, patting me on the back saying it's okay, we're fine, it's gone, using Tommy's voice, but I knew better. Eventually I got up and shoved my way past it. Feeling my way around the house, I tried to get away from it, but it just stayed with me. I eventually found myself in the laundry room. The entire time it wouldn't shut up. It just kept saying everything it could, just to get me to open my eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. I did the only thing I could think of. I felt around until I found the bleach, and I poured it into my eyes. The pain was unbelievable, and even while I was screaming, I could still hear it. Instead of trying to get me to open my eyes now, it started insulting me. It called me all sorts of horrible things and said so many horrible things to me. I just laid there and sobbed until somebody found me. I guess Tommy and John's body weren't there because they were ruled as missing persons. I kept getting question after question, but I never spoke again. I had nothing to say because no one would ever believe me. And after all these years, it kept talking. Agatha lets out a deep sigh. Until tonight. Sam's heart drops at the realization. No, she whispers. No, 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 no. This isn't real. This can't be real. You're crazy. You're just a crazy old bitch. And there's just a couple psychos trying to get in. Sam opens her eyes and runs to the kitchen grabbing a knife. Agatha can almost feel her heart break. As Sam grabs the knife, she looks out the window and screams out as she sees the horrifying face directly in front of the glass. She turns and runs to the living room and screams again. Standing in the living room right in front of the front door stands the tall black demon. It's even more horrifying up close. Sam turns to run up the stairs, but there it is again. No matter which direction she turns, it's there, moving closer and closer. She turns to the front door, and the demon is there once again, and runs at it, swinging the knife, but it goes right through her as if it's not even there. She backs up and turns to Agatha. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Agatha repeats over and over again, not noticing the demonic body standing through her as though she were some kind of hologram. Sam falls to her knees and sobs, squeezing her eyes shut. Through Agatha's repeating apologies, she can hear other voices all around her. She can hear her mother say, "Open your eyes, sweetie. Mommy's here." She can hear Jeff, her boyfriend, say, "I'm here. I won't let anything happen. Just open your eyes, babe." She can even hear Agatha through her actual cry. "Sam, it's gone. It gave up. You're safe. You can open them now." She can even hear the sound of a dog that sounds exactly like her own, and can even feel his tongue lick her on the face. Sam and Agatha stayed there for what seems like an eternity. The voices never leave Sam, and the guilt for passing this curse never leaves Agatha. Eventually, Sam reaches her breaking point. She grips the knife hard and slowly places it to her left eye. As she prepares herself, she can hear what sounds like the door being broken down. She can hear the sounds of multiple footsteps and what sounds like the police. She then hears a loud, commanding voice. "Put down the weapon and put your hands on your head." She drops the knife and does so. She sobs, not daring to open her eyes. She can hear another voice say from across the room, "She's gone." It hadn't even occurred to her that she could no longer hear Agatha's sorrow as the demonic voices have been relentless even now. She sobs even more. Sam feels an arm grab hers, and she picks herself up. Suddenly, an idea pops into her head. "The glasses," she yells. "Look at the glasses." She can hear mumbles of confusion. Soon, she hears the sound of someone walking around the room. "These old things?" a voice says. "Yes," she exclaims. "You have to look through them. It will explain everything." Sam becomes anxious as she waits for the voices to stop, until finally, they do. Silence. Absolute silence. She sighs in relief and slowly opens her eyes.